In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about another in the continuous list of losses from Matt Eberflus and the Chicago Bears. We'll be talking a little baseball, a little basketball, a little hockey. But first, like thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You could see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. The season is going on right now, so make sure you head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Oh, Alex. So today, my daughter is dancing in a professional ballet with the Joffrey Ballet, and she had rehearsal today. And my wife was like, "Can you pick her up at 2:30?" Like, sure. So I have the YouTube TV on my phone, and my daughter and I are in the car. And we were in the car last week as well when the kick got blocked. And I was like, I'm like, this week is going to be different. You're not going to watch a painful loss. And the Bears tie it up, send it to overtime. I'm like, see, this is it. And then overtime happened, and it was the most Bears thing you could Bears. And she had to watch me go from misery to elation to misery again. And she's like, "Sorry, Dad. One day the Bears will win."
That's so funny that you say that because literally before we started recording, I put a tweet out about, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes ago, give or take. And I said one day, comma, Chicago fans will be happy and have fun again.
I hope so. It's been a
Be-
long time.
yeah, I mean, you can go beyond just the Bears. I mean, the Blackhawks keep losing.
That's
The
true.
Bulls are fun bad. The biggest move that the White Sox are going to make is for Austin Riley. At least that's what we hear. And the Cubs want nothing to do with the third best baseball player on the planet. Um, but this Bears game, which is going to be our main focus point, obviously, it's funny. After that loss, I was more accepting of you know what? Caleb Williams looked really good, and it was probably another step to pushing Matt Eberflus out the door. Because that's what a lot of people tried to say last week, and I'm like, no, I'm pissed. That was against your biggest rival who's owned you, who you've been their doormat, and you lost yet another heartbreaker to them when it looked like you were finally going to pull it out of your butts against them. But no. I mean, I almost cried last week. I was just so broken and devastated. Now this week, believe me, I got a lot of gripes. Some of it with the roster, most of it with the coaching. But at least I can say that I saw another promising game from Caleb Williams. 340 passing yards, 2 touchdown passes, no interceptions, a QB rating just over 100 against the top defense in the league. You know, this is against an 8-2, now 9-2 Vikings team that has done really good defensive stuff. The way he picked up the blitz today, the way he moved his feet, the way he stepped up in the pocket, I was really impressed with Caleb Williams. And just like last week, did a really good job with the legs. He didn't make the, 70-yard Justin Fields like bursts, but that's not what you want him doing. What you want him doing is scanning the field. If it's not there, you take off and run, you get a first down, and you immediately slide. I mean, we've seen some really good running with Caleb Williams. But the main thing I want to talk to you today about is there is absolutely zero signs, aspects, angles you can look at that show you that Matt Eberflus is a head coach. There is absolutely none, because I have some stats I want to read and talk over, and I want to compare Matt Eberflus to the guy on the other side of the field today, Kevin O'Connell, who I think might be in the top 5 of coaches. He should at least be in that conversation. But there is nothing right now that is telling you Matt Eberflus needs to keep being the head coach of this team, because you can look at every angle. You will find nothing. You can look at a lot of bad coaches and even point out some, well, they're strong in this, they've done that in the past. Can you tell me right now off the top of your head, is there something that Matt Eberflus does that you think is outstanding good? Anything? Because I can't.
Yes, he is outstanding at bad clock management.
Well, when I say
He's terrible. I mean, listen, flat out. Uh, he, these are the things that he's bad enough at singularly to get fired. Clock management. He's abysmal. I mean, abysmal. Uh, Situational awareness, which is one of the hits principles. He's terrible. Is decisiveness bad? Is having his team ready to play bad? In-game adjustments bad. Like, what does he do? I posted earlier the Bobs from Office Space is like, Eberflus, what is it that you say you do here? I don't know. I don't know what he does.
well, and here's the thing. Today, the Vikings, they didn't really do anything overly flashy, complex, but you didn't need to, because you could feast on the Bears' mistakes, the consistent mistakes that this team makes, and they were a smart enough team where they could scheme their offense, basically just going against every single weakness that the Bears defense has. Now, I know the defense, numbers wise, has done a lot of good things over the past year, but man, those soft coverages, those are going to burn you after a while, because we even saw at the beginning of the year, and I talked about this. I talked about this after the Rams game. They can get big chunk yards against you with these soft coverages, especially if they pick up a blitz. And we saw the Vikings do that. They had their game plan tailored against the Bears' weaknesses, against the soft coverages, and what have we said every week? Virtually every week. Gashing you in. They gash you in on the run game. And we saw it right off the bat. And you were lucky that Aaron Jones fumbled on that opening drive, or else that would have been a touchdown. It would have flat out been a touchdown. So you go into overtime, and you're still playing soft zone. After you had the ball, knowing all you needed was a field goal to win. You had already possessed the ball, and you're playing soft. Did they get some pressure today? Yes, but it didn't make a difference. They got over 450 yards against you. They didn't have to do anything great. They just knew to scheme their game plan to those weaknesses, and they got you. They got you good. They gashed you in. They hit the soft coverages. What was it? 3rd and 13, 3rd and 12, 2nd and 17. They converted all of those. That's, to me, to your point, that's not adjusting in game. That's a big problem. And when you make the mistakes that you do, good coaching, good teams like the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell, they're going to take advantage of that. When you muff a punt, they took advantage of it. It's the little things. It is the little things. Sean, there's one play in particular I want to talk to you about. And I'm sure you were as frustrated as I was when this happened.
Is it when Sam Darnold went out and they had the backup quarterback who came in, threw his like first pass of the year and got a 3rd and long conversion?
Well, frustrated me too. That wasn't the one I was thinking of, but I am glad you brought that up because that was ridiculous. I mean, they
Which
gave him that whole cushion. You know,
which play is it? Because there's a lot of the plays that I just was frustrated, beyond frustrated with.
so it was fourth down. They were going to kick the field goal. The boos came down, but then they pulled the field goal unit back and had to rush the offense back on the field. And they had a rush a play and they didn't convert and they turned it over on downs.
Yes. Now
That stuff matters.
I'm going to say this. I 100% agreed with going for it on fourth down.
Me too.
100%. But it goes back to what I said is you be decisive. Because Dan Campbell is not wavering and waiting to hear the boos and then making a late decision. Dan
Mm-hmm.
Campbell's saying, stay out there. And this team, you have a rookie quarterback, is you can't have play. This is a twofold, is when plays come in late, he doesn't do well. And when you send him out there and can't get to play him, it's like a double whammy. Is you've got to give him the time to go in there and process what he can and get things settled and then make the play. That's when he's better. You can't rush him through. And they just don't care. Is you got to be decisive in there. Is if they, you know what, if he was decisive and decided to kick the field goal, okay. I mean, not what I would have done, but you can't have the field goal unit come out and then change your mind and send them back. It's just setting everybody up for failure.
That offense should have stayed on the field, especially after the same thing that happened last week happened again.
Yeah.
You settle for a field goal and it got blocked.
And again, this is he Matt Eberflus does not learn. Is the Packers told you what was going to happen. They said, we saw something. We worked on it all week. We knew we were going to block a kick, and we did. The Vikings went, hey, we saw the same thing, and we saw the Packers game, and we went and did the same thing. Nobody did anything to fix anything.
Because that's what good coaches do.
Do you think Bill Belichick gets burned 2 weeks in a row on a mistake like that?
A good coach wouldn't. Kevin O'Connell wouldn't.
You don't. So I mean, things happen. You know, I'm mad at the kick returner because the ball hit him and for no reason at all. He didn't get blocked into it. He was dumb. Plain and simple. He just made the dumbest play you could possibly make. The thing is they don't prepare these guys mentally. They don't prepare them. Is you keep working on those things. Hey, don't do this. Hey, remember, don't do this. Hey. It's last second. Last time I have to tell, don't do this. Is you've got to beat these things in. You've got to ingrain them. Is this team they lack discipline. They lack the hard work effort. And that starts with the coaching staff.
And how many times do we have to see penalties immediately after a timeout?
Yeah. It's the pre-snap penalties on this team, both offensively and defensively. It's atrocious. It's atrocious. And they don't get resolved. They just don't get resolved. I don't know how Matt Eberflus can go up to that podium and keep answering questions like he's not the problem. And I'm at the point Ryan Poles cannot be the GM of this team next year. Ryan Poles enabled all of this to happen. And here's the two-prong thing is one, I've heard people say, well, the McCaskies won't let him fire a coach mid-year, or they made him keep Eberflus because of the contract situation. Well, you know what? Then you have a weak GM who can't stand up to his owner after the owner explicitly said, Ryan runs football operations. If they're still telling you football operation things, then you're a weak GM and you don't deserve that job. And if you did have the authority to fire Matt Eberflus in the offseason and you didn't, and you did have the authority to fire him midseason, then you deserve to be fired. There's no way you can justify. I mean, Matt Eberflus there's not a person on this planet that can give anybody an argument for why he should be the head coach next year. But you're having a hard sell on Matt Eber or on Ryan Poles. Is take away the fleecing of Carolina. What has he done?
Well, I mean, that was the big move. I think Montez Sweat was a good move.
I've got a bone to pick with Montez Sweat. The hell's he done in a month?
I mean, he had a decent game today, but yes, I do want to be fair to him. He has been hurt. And when you don't have, though, you could argue this is a problem with Ryan Poles. When you don't have sufficient pass rushing, they're going to scheme and double team you. So you could say that is an issue on Ryan Poles. I still think the Montez Sweat move was a good move. But I mean, okay, you've had some decent draft picks. You had some flubs. Every organization does. But the thing is, and this to me is one of the biggest indictments of them all. And this is not only to Ryan Poles, but I want George McCaskey and Kevin Warren to look at this too. If you collectively are so concerned about eating money for a coach, let me ask you this. How do you feel when your coach is putting you further into the red with investment on coaching because you let him pick his second offensive coordinator this offseason? You let him do that, and you fired him after 9 games. And he's not the first coach to leave. All these mid-season firings of the coaches and firing Luke Getsy at the end of last year, that's who your head coaches brought in, and all these guys are being fired. How do you like that for your investment? I mean, listen, Shane Waldron, I'm sure he's a nice fella, and even I tried to give him a lot of rope early in the season. Because I, in my delusional mind, thought, look at what he did in Seattle with Geno Smith, blah, blah, blah. And yet, you heard all the warning signs in the world, and boy, was it clear at the end that the Shane Waldron, that was just not a fruitful investment at all. And in 2 games with Thomas Brown, you see a difference. You see a difference in Caleb, in his confidence. You see a difference in scheme. You see them using DJ Moore. You see a moving pocket.
Can I read a couple quick stats here?
Of course.
These are from Courtney Cronin.
Okay.
From weeks 1 through 9 to weeks 11 and 12. So Waldron versus Thomas Brown. And this, mind you, this is the same playbook that's being used because you can't implement a new playbook like this.
Right.
This is the same playbook. It is just different midweek coaching and a different cadence of play calling from the same book. From weeks 1 through 9 through weeks 11 and 12, Caleb Williams' completion percentage jumped 10 points from 61 to 71%. His yards per attempt went from 6.3 to 7.1, and his average pass time from 2.9 to 2.42 seconds. So you have seen, he's posted the 2 lowest pressure percentages of the season in these 2 games, the lowest average pass time of the season. And as a result, his passing efficiency has gone up. Imagine that. Is you get the ball out quicker, you be decisive, and you drop, or you call better sequence of plays, and completion percentage goes up and sacks go down. It's amazing, right?
It is. And frankly, what's amazing to me is the difference in the body language. Do you remember how defeated Caleb Williams was in that Patriots game?
DJ Moore.
DJ Moore, too. A lot of those guys. The fact that they were not going to let go of Shane Waldron and then they talked to the players and made a different decision. How telling was that? And again, I don't think anybody disliked him as a person, but as a coach.
That's all that matters, though. That's all that
Exactly.
matters.
No, exactly. That is all that matters. I'm just making it clear that this is the circumstances that we're talking about. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible that they had to talk to the players and make this change. Like the players were outright calling for help publicly. They knew this wasn't working. They knew this was messed up.
All I can picture is the players, and then, with the Tiger King, I called for help twice.
Or have you seen that one meme of the guy in the subway? He's like, "Help, police, help!" That's DJ Moore on the Chicago L, and he's on there with Shane Waldron.
Uh, I, it's just mind-boggling to me. They're just so scared as an organization to make a change, and to it's like, I'm sure you've seen the Lord of the Rings movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when Merry and Pippin are talking to Treebeard, and they're like, "We need your help." We talked amongst each other and decided we should have a longer conversation. It's like, I was like, just do the right thing. It's not hard. And last week I talked a lot about, here's the thing. Do I think player wise the Bears are that far away? No, I don't. I mean, they've got the quarterback, they've got wide receivers, they got the tight ends.
You need the trenches, is what you need.
You need the trenches, but like I think you're close. And if you look at some of these just absolute boneheaded losses that they had, like record, you convert those to wins, and you're like, okay, well, record wise says we're not that far either. But here's the problem. The Bears have a loser mentality in the organization.
Right. Yep.
And before you can consider even thinking about playoffs, you've got to shake that loser mentality. And
unfortunately, I think it all starts with George McCaskey.
It does. You either have to do it, you either have to bring somebody in there that is so strong-willed that they're going to do it despite Georgie Porgy, or you have to wait until they sell the team.
I think get Georgie Porgy from Babes in Toyland.
It's you didn't bring in Jim Harbaugh. And I get it. There's reasons that I wouldn't have too, but you know what? He's coming in here with a plan, and you'll never, ever, ever, ever say that Jim Harbaugh is not going to have his team prepared, and that he's not decisive, and that he's not going to have a winner attitude.
You see what he's doing with the Chargers, man?
And it's funny because the Chargers, everybody, before they hired Harbaugh, everybody had something in mind of what they were, and it was going to be an aerial attack team. Because you're like, well, you just got to get them weapons, and you've got this quarterback. And Jim Harbaugh goes in there, nope, we are going to dominate in the trenches and run first.
Which is all Ryan Poles talked about when he first got here.
And that's working for them. They've establishing dominance on both sides of the ball in the trenches, and they're winning those ball games. And you know what? A big difference is last week you had a scared coach playing scared football, scared to win the game, and doing that long ass kick and not even considering the hash mark where his kicker wants it. And what did Harbaugh do when he was in a similar situation?
He went for it.
He went for it and he scored the damn touchdown.
Uh-huh. And when Matt Eberflus says, well, we might have fumbled, we might do this, if I'm a player, I'm insulted.
Yeah.
If that's what my head coach thinks of me, I'm insulted.
That is the most scared language. If that's what he's saying afterwards, just imagine what's going through his head during the situation. He's scared. He is a scared coach.
They're the softest team in sports. They really, really are.
And here's the thing is everybody knows he's going to be fired. So why are you coaching scared? What are you scared of? Getting fired? You're going to get fired. Go out there and just make a bold decision. Screw it. I'm going to get fired anyway. Going back to Office Space. Do you think Peter, he just decided that the F it? He went in there with shorts and fish and cut up his fish, left halfway through. When you don't care, just make those things. Things will get better.
The last thing I'll ever see happening in my mind is Matt Eberflus walking around with "Damn It Feels Good to Be a Gangster" playing in the background. But you know what? It's the scaredness is exactly it top to bottom, because again, we talk about the Bears higher ups hiring a coach. You know they would never go for a Jim Harbaugh because you want too much power and he disrupt the little harmony that happens up there in that booth where George and Virginia and Kevin Warren sit. They don't want that.
If Jim Harbaugh is Peter from Office Space, Matt Eberflus is Milton. I told him if they didn't get me my 3 techniques, I was going to burn this building down.
But you see, I could have gone for another play. I know anything about, but the last time I did that, there was something where they fumbled the ball. And if I fumbled the ball, then I looked really like a jackass.
I went around and I gave everybody a little nickname, and they all have little nicknames that I call them.
Well, Georgie Porgy said I could play pre-game music at a temporary level, and that it was given permission. It was written. God, you're so right. You are so right. And what's upsetting is, and telling, Thomas Brown's been the OC for 2 weeks, right? Just 2 weeks. But when you listen to him talk to the press, what do you hear? You hear what you've wanted to hear from a head coach. You hear him telling Caleb to be him. You hear him saying there are no good job if you don't win the game. It's all this stuff. And all we hear from Matt Eberflus is, we have to look, we got to figure it out. You have to look, you got to figure it out. Matt, you have 14 wins in 2.5 years. Can I read some stats for you? I've wanted to get to this.
Okay.
You're 5-18 in 1-score games. 5-18. And so many of those have been those soul-crushing losses that you had 90% chance to win. You're 0-17 on the road on Sunday. You're 3-18 on the road overall. You are 2-11 against the NFC North. And you're 2-9 in challenges. You have the same number of challenge wins as you do wins in your own division. We are past the threshold of 2022 when you can point and say, well, they were tanking on purpose. We are a season and a half past that. That's That's not even part of the threshold anymore. The numbers are what they are. Okay, 2022, you were 0 for 6 against the North. You were tanking. Great. Okay, well, guess what? What have you done since then? You've won 2 games against the North, and you played 8. You're 2-8 against them since whatever it is. That's not good enough. You weren't tanking last year. You weren't supposed to be tanking this year. You haven't won a single road game at noon? That's inconceivable. This is going back to that point where there is no number, stat, perspective, or where you could say Matt Eberflus is good at this. And his strength was supposed to be defensive coordinating. Well, your soft zones are getting exposed again. You gave up over 450 yards to the Vikings today. I'm not saying the Vikings are bad. I mean, they're 9-2. But the one hope I had was maybe the defense could play good enough where you can win. But you didn't today. And the Vikings went out and exposed every hole.
Not only is the offense put up 27 points, your defense that's supposed to be that preseason talked about potentially a top 10, maybe even a top 5 defense, as they couldn't get a win when your offense puts up 27 points
at home. Yeah. How this team finds ways to lose. And what I pray is that everybody up top values winning and losing more than moral victories. Because I feel like sometimes they do value moral victories. It's one thing to say in 2022, when you thought Justin Fields was the future, that he had a good game, but you tanked loss. That's a different story. Today, I can at least say that Caleb Williams looked really darn good and that you were close to getting Eberflus out the door. But the fact that we're in this position to think that way is unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable. And did you hear the rumors? I don't know if the rumors, but there's this pretty much seems like fact that they gave Matt Eberflus a 5-year deal. Did you hear that?
I did. I've heard that a couple times.
So you gave a first-time defensive head coach a 5-year deal. Why? Seriously, why?
He has no leverage. Like no leverage. I just don't get it.
And I mean, I hear people speculating that they're going to let go of Flus after Thanksgiving. I don't really know, but you're going to Detroit. Detroit's the best team in football.
They look so good.
They look like a cheat code. I can't remember watching a team this dominant in this division.
And they were good to start the season, and then they figured something out, and now they're just destroying teams.
Yeah. So with your inability to stop the run against that run game, good luck. I think I'm going to be spending more time with my family that day than watching that.
Yeah, it's why do I want to ruin my Thanksgiving?
I don't. I want to have an appetite for dinner.
It's just stupid frustrating, and that game is going to be so bad. Yeah, let's see. Lions won week 1 26-20, close win. They lost 20-16 to Tampa, close loss. 20-13 win against Arizona, close win. 42-29, fairly close win. Then Dallas 47-9, 31-29 over Minnesota, 52-14 over Tennessee, 24-14 over Green Bay, and it looked way worse than that score. They dominated Green Bay. 26-23, 52-6 over Jacksonville, 24-6 over Indy. They are just scoring at will.
Yeah.
They only have one game this year where they've scored under 20 points.
It's unreal. It is unreal. We're going to see them win a Super Bowl before us. So,
Well, yeah, duh. But I my only hope is that the Bears players compete and play hard and show Ben Johnson something so he's willing to come here next year.
he's not coming here. I guarantee it.
Let me dream. Let me dream.
No, I don't want you to get sucked into meatballness. I'm
We-
trying to save you, man.
We're going to get, God, who are we going to get? I'm trying to think. It won't be a retread. It'll be,
Brian Flores.
no, like it'll be like Bobby Slowick. You're like, oh, okay, you can get a little bit excited and until you start digging into the things and you're like, okay, he had really good year last year, but hasn't been that good this year. And then he's going to be fall flat because he's not going to have a good defensive coordinator because they hire a first time head or coordinator for defense. And then no experience on there and it just falls flat. Like I'm a big believer in having some experience. Not everybody has to have experience, but you have to have some sort of experience. And the Bears typically will have people in these positions where it's the first time they've ever been in that position. And at some point you look at other teams and they bring in former head coaches to be a head coach. Okay, they might have failed once, but you know what? A lot of times they learn things. They learned what went wrong, they fix it, and they come back. Look at Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn is doing all right in Washington. But then there's people that bring head coaches onto their coaching staff. And what the Bears don't do that is it's okay. I mean, you look at Robert Saleh. He got fired. Was it Green Bay? Did Green Bay pick him up? He brought him in as well, we already got our full coaching staff, but let's bring in a guy that has head coaching experience and was a hell of a defensive coordinator because he's going to make us better. Bring him in. Why does everybody have to be a first timer at their position? Is the last time that we didn't do that was
John Fox.
Vic Fangio. You brought
you're talking about okay. Yeah.
Anybody is they brought in most of the time they bring in, oh, well, he's first time head coach, brought in a first time offensive coordinator, first time defensive coordinator, first time running backs coach. Everybody's step up in a position. Is when Vic Fangio came, Vic Fangio had been a defensive coordinator for a long time, and he hired people who had been those roles. They all had experience. Everybody knew what they were doing. They were not all learning on the job at the same time. It's the philosophy makes sense. If you're going to bring in a first-time head coach that's young, pair him with a good defensive coordinator that's got experience. The Sean McVay thing is that worked. That worked. You just give somebody experience, somebody they can lean on. Bring, like I keep saying, I was like, Ben Johnson with Robert Saleh Ben Johnson's your head coach, Robert Saleh is your defensive coordinator. Don't be afraid that Robert Saleh got some of that Jet stink on him, because you know what? Is the Jets have overwhelming stink. They're worse than the Bears, if that's possible.
Yeah, they're
they're a disaster. And
they're down Schitt's Creek and then some.
Yeah. Did Robert Saleh, was he a good head coach? I don't know. I can't tell you because he was with the Jets. It's hard to judge. But you know what? He has that experience under his belt. And and when you bring him in, he knows how to be a defensive coordinator. He's been successful. He can do that. And a young head coach can lean on him a little bit with, hey, how are we doing this? From anything from, practicing to uh, helping set the tone for the team. Like it helps. It helps. The experience is good.
Yeah, it does. And you know what? You pointed out the Vic Fangio hiring. It was probably the best coaching hire the Bears have made over the past 10 plus years.
Yeah. And honestly, I thought that they made smart decisions. I mean, Matt Nagy turned out to be a bust. And I can understand why that was a sucker in because you were like, oh man, look what he did. But then you forget that it was Andy Reid. Andy Reid pulls all those strings.
At least there was sound logic behind it and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't hiring a Canadian football coach over the reigning coach of the year bad or
Yeah.
going with Matt Eberflus over some of these other guys. Kevin O'Connell was one of those guys.
Yep.
Obviously, Dan Quinn was available at the time. Jim Caldwell seemed like he was still a candidate to coach again. So, yeah, I mean, that's a big difference now compared to then, too. But, uh,
It is I get it. Matt Nagy ended up sucking, but Matt Nagy talks a good game. And you're like, okay, we're pairing him with a legit defensive coordinator. We've got a good team here. And that first year, things went, for the most part, pretty well until the end. But uh, you live and you learn. You make mistakes. I just feel, like you said, the Trestman hire was a terrible one. And you know what? Eh, Mark Trestman, I still will say this, is a very smart football man. He's
yes,
just
he can't lead a team.
he's not a team leader. Is that guy, if you hired him to be like your offensive quality control coach that helps you install game plans and plan for a week, I think that'd be a home run. I think the guy's really smart. He is just weak. He's not a leader of men. It takes you have this group of like just giant like guys that bash each other for a living. You need somebody strong to go in there and take control. That wasn't Mark Trestman. And Mark Trestman that first year, that offense was cooking.
It was. Yeah. Yes, it was.
It was the defense that was bad.
Yeah. I
And that
mean,
was and that was the Bears switching defensive styles.
Mel Tucker. Ugh.
I think Mel Tucker got a raw deal too because it's just like, hey, you're like, let's switch defensive styles uh and not give players to it. Like he didn't do great, but it was also a lot of things that were out of his control. But that whole situation was just brutal. But even still, Mark Trestman is a better coach than Matt Eberflus.
I've officially made that statement the other day, and I've been very, very reluctant to do that because the only thing I could say Matt Eberflus is probably better at is a culture, but even then, it's like, what is that worth? Especially when you hired an offensive coordinator that clearly wasn't gelling with your guys, and they were visibly frustrated.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Bears coaches since I started watching football, and I guess technically Neil Armstrong was the coach when I started watching, but I don't remember. So in my brain, the first head coach that I can actually remember and can gauge anything would be Mike Ditka. Mike Ditka's clearly a a was a good coach. He won a Super Bowl. Um, then Wani. Wani didn't do so good, but you know what? Wani knows football. Wani knows how to lead a team.
Oh yeah, you put the two safeties there, and
Dick Duran wasn't very good.
uh
That was a bad look.
that was my earliest coaching memory was Dick Duran.
Lovie Smith was a very good coach, and Lovie Smith was a leader of men.
Yes, yes,
He-
I yes.
Um, Mark Trestman was bad. You got this shell of John Fox.
Yeah, I mean he was a good head coach, but the timing, he was on his way out, and just what the Bears are trying to do, the fit was just not there.
Yeah, that was a bad hire that you let a consultant pick. Matt Nagy was bad. Matt Eberflus. So in that list, uh, Matt Eberflus is the worst coach in my lifetime of watching football of the Chicago Bears.
Yeah. Okay, let's try to rank them. How about that?
Best to worst or worst to best?
Uh, worst to best.
Matt Eberflus.
Okay.
Mark Trestman.
Yep. I agree. I'd say Dick Duran next.
I'm going to say Matt Nagy.
You're gonna put Dick Duran over Matt Nagy.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean, the biggest thing Matt Nagy had going for him is he won Coach of the Year, but so did Dick Duran.
But that 01 season was the biggest fluke ever.
It was fluky, but that was all him. Is the accomplishments of Matt Nagy I put solely on Vic Fangio.
I mean, he technically made the playoffs in 2020. Technically.
I'm not going to split hairs. It's not like there's this crazy gap.
Oh no. There
Yeah.
is no crazy gap at all. I'm just like I'm not defending Matt Nagy. He
You know
got
what?
to the playoff multiple times. He did finish with a winning record.
I'm going to take that back. I'm going to put Bears version of John Fox next.
Okay, I mean, yeah. Again, I don't think John Fox was good for the Bears. The one thing I will say is he had some awful rosters.
He did.
Those rosters were putrid, especially 16 when that was the year they had Matt Barkley throwing to like, oh, what was that guy's? I don't even remember, like Cam Meredith and Eddie Royal. Like that team was no good.
Yeah, that they were bad, but he was bad too. It was just a combination there.
Yeah.
And I don't think he even gave a shit at that point.
No, it's just my thing with John Fox is like you look at his overall resume, it was good. It was good, but in Chicago, it was not. So I kind of like giving the resume respect a little higher. That's just me. So, how about this? How about you give your list? I'll give my list.
Okay, all right. Matt Eberflus,
Mm-hmm.
John Fox, Matt Nagy, Dick Duran, Dave Wanstead, Lovie Smith, Mike Ditka.
Okay, so I'll go Eberflus last, Trestman second to last, Dick Duran
Did I skip
third.
over Mark Trestman?
Yeah, I think you did.
Oh, sorry. He'd be right after Matt Eberflus.
Okay, so we're both in agreement. The bottom two are Eberflus, Ferry Bottom, followed by Mark Trestman.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna put Dick Duran.
Okay.
I just outside of 2001, it was awful. I mean, didn't you tell me the story of when you went down and watched them at U of I?
Oh yeah, that was bad.
Yeah,
That was bad.
yeah. And again, those teams weren't great either, but
I don't even remember if they crossed midfield at that point at that game.
yeah, yeah. So I'll put Dick Duran third to worst. Then I'll go Bears version of John Fox, Matt Nagy, Dave Wanstead, Lovie Smith, Mike Ditka.
Dick Duran might be the smartest guy in that list, though.
Could be.
He was an academic All-American at Yale.
Oh, good for him. My earliest memories were of Dick Duran. Those seasons in 02, 03. Those were so bad.
What's wild is I mean, part of the thing is I I give a little higher to Dick Duran because he actually was a head coach after the Bears too, two different occasions.
He was. He was.
Is he was the interim head coach for the Lions and then went on to be the head coach of the Bills.
There was lots of Bills fan puke.
uh I don't know what it is you just this this organization, they're a loser organization. I love the Chicago Bears with all my heart. They're a loser organization.
They are every definition of a loser organization. And
And I can't remember, it was last week with Tom Brady or this week with Moose Johnson. One of them said something that was absolutely true, is that this team can't just go out and do something positive and win. They rely on something bad happening to the other team to keep them in the game.
right.
And
Right.
it's really true.
It is true.
It's
It's dead on true.
it, like you can't play that way. You've got to win football games. You like you look at the Super Bowl and what was it, the Eagles Chiefs. Look at that one. And it was a slugfest back and forth. And each team just like, you know what? We're going to go down there and make this happen. And kept going down and scoring and and no team quit. Everybody just kept rising to the occasion. You look at the Eagles beating the Patriots in the Super Bowl. The Eagles were with their backup quarterback. And they were like, you know what?
Mhm.
We're playing to win. We're playing to win. The Philly special. And they just went out there and put everything on the field. And they're like, we're going to win this. It's that's that's a winner mentality. And the Bears just don't have that. Like this organization, they're too concerned with being nice. And listen, I'm not trying to bring in like murderers and rapists on the team.
Oh no, goodness no.
But at some point, like I don't need my coach to be polite and nice. I want somebody that's going to go and kick the podium over and scream into the things and yell and be mad. Is
You want an alpha. They never hire an alpha.
Yeah, I want somebody that's going to go and show the same emotion that I do in the loss. Me sitting on my dumb couch yelling at my TV. I want the head coach to be just as mad as I am.
I agree. I've been saying this for a while.
Denny Green, when they lost that game to the Bears on that, was it Monday Night Football?
Yep.
And he was mad. And I don't blame him. I have never been I never once laughed at him about that, because you know what? I get how he felt. I get how those fans felt. They owned that game, and the Bears had just snatched it away from him at the end. They had him on the ropes, and he was mad, and he let everybody know it. He didn't go out there and be like, oh, we just got to execute. We had a good week of practice. Like, I don't want that. I don't care about your good week of practice. You know how many times I've heard Matt Nagy and Matt Eberflus tell me about how good their week of practice was?
And Mark Trestman, he did it all the time.
Yeah, it's all of them. Tell me how good. You know who's a loser is when you tell me how your practice was. I don't give a shit about your practice. We talking about practice?
Yeah,
Practice?
to ask Allen Iverson about that. You're so right. You're so right. I want someone to get pissed. I want someone to get tear-filled. I want someone to really show some damn emotion. And when you saw Thomas Brown, when you saw those clips of him up in the booth, people thought that was a breath of fresh air. And
It's okay to be mad. It's okay when things don't go how you plan to go, is to be mad at yourself, to be mad at players, and hold people accountable and be upset. It's fine. It's okay. It's therapeutic. Do it. When you just sit there like like you're in a coma, like you know, I I it always stuck in my craw. Like I love Lovey. Lovey seems like an amazing guy. I would love to hang out with Lovey. Lovey, Lovey had that team believe in him, and they followed him to the ends. But that man never showed any emotion,
no, he
and
was a
it
statue.
it drove me nuts. It drove me nuts. And Matt Nagy showed some emotion out there, but it like it was on the field, and then afterwards he was Mr. Calm. And I want somebody
Try to
mad at the
find the
podium.
whys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I ever hear about the whys again, I I'm Matt Eberflus, just he looks like he's got that same dumb Matt Nagy face where he's just like the like I just can't deal. I don't want to see Matt Eberflus's face on at a press conference ever again. And I hope there's 0% chance they're firing him before Thanksgiving. 0%.
Short
And
week.
short week. It just won't happen. If they're gonna do it, it'll be on Black Friday. Because he gives you a long week. But I don't think they will.
You
And I
remember when people laughed at Dan Campbell for the biting the kneecaps thing, and remember his first year when they were rebuilding and they lost the game on that Justin Tucker record-breaking kick and he was crying and people were like getting on him for that. You know what? Look where they are now. Look what
yeah,
that's doing for them.
that man cares. And that man goes for it on fourth down all the time, even when people laugh at him and say it was dumb decision. And you know what? He knows exactly who he is and what he wants. And they laughed at him the first year when they were bad. And then they laughed at him when they were getting better and they were the dark horse. And they laughed at him when they were just not good enough and for doing it. And now that they're the most dominant team in football, nobody's laughing when he does that stuff. He's the
No.
same guy. And that team rides or dies with him. It
Sean,
and it starts they've got a dumb ownership too. But you know what? They hired a smart general manager and got out of the way.
yeah, they did.
And it starts from right from there. Their general manager and their head coach are on the same page about things. They're building from the trenches and they're building with guys that are going to ride with. And you know what? They made a bold decision to trade a Hall of Fame quarterback. They got a haul and they took a quarterback that the Rams didn't want. They wanted no part of him, and they turned him into an MVP caliber quarterback. They rebuilt him.
Yeah. Yeah. And here we are.
Here we are. Nobody's biting kneecaps at the Bears organization.
No, they're getting their kneecaps bitten. There's another this the sad thing is this goes beyond the Bears. It's this whole goddamn city.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be great. Nobody wants to be an alpha.
Yeah.
Nobody.
You've got a generational young player in the Blackhawks. And
Who is dejected right now?
yes, they should fire their head coach. They should have replaced him.
I was all about Luke Richardson, man, but this ain't it. This is a mess. And I know they're not very talented. I know they're not going to win a lot of games. I know that more talent is going to help. But when you have this line shuffle that is constant and no chemistry, you got to start asking some questions, especially when your star is clearly frustrated and you have him on these questionable lines.
It's so dumb. We'll get to that in a bit, but like you're right. The Bulls have a terrible ownership, and They're unwilling to spend money. And sure, they spend, you're like, oh, you look at the salary cap and you're like, oh, okay. But then you look at the actual money spent and they're low. Is teams spend over the threshold. They find ways to bring in superstars, and the Bulls don't because they're more worried about making money than they are about winning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a fact. They'll blame the players. Oh, the players didn't do this. But you know what? What superstar is on the Bulls? What superstar?
You don't have a superstar. I mean, Zach LaVine's playing well, Vooch is playing well, Kobe White's playing well. You have guys that are borderline all-star caliber, but you don't have a Giannis or a Joker or a Luca or a
You,
LeBron or a
there's
Steph.
Yeah, you don't have a Steph Curry, you don't have a LeBron James, you don't have a Jokic, you don't have a Jason Tatum, you don't have a Kevin Durant, you don't have a Giannis, you don't have a Luca, you don't
You
have an
don't.
Anthony Davis, you don't have a Kawhi Leonard, you don't have a Paul George, you
Huh,
don't
this
you
sounds kind of familiar, Sean. What other team in the city sounds just like this?
the Cubs.
The
You-
team with the cathedral, the frickin' sports book, the TV station, the Wrigleyville, all of this. Nah, we're not even going to try for Juan Soto. We're just going to cross our fingers and hope everything works out.
it,
You know what's
it,
frustrating about that organization? I think the Cubs, they actually have the brains, but they want to draw that line in the sand. They could be great if they wanted to. Nah, we kind of like how the Diamondbacks do things.
yeah, the Cubs revenue from the Cubs, not including the sports book, and the hotels and the bars and the restaurants and the tchotchkes and the pumpkins. It was
At Gallagher.
over $500 million this year. And they just won't spend the money. They they bought that team for what, $1 billion,
Something like that.
and it's worth like 5 times that. They're in the time they've owned it, it's increased. It's like $5 billion value. And so, yeah, like I don't understand. Why do you need to make a profit off of them every year?
You'll make a bigger profit if you win.
Is you don't have to make this big chunk of money every year. Uh, even though you will, is spend the money and build a winner, and you're gonna see that value go in. People are willing to pay for the stupid marquee network. Uh, all the cord cutters are going to be willing to spend. I got rid of it mid-season. I'm like, you know what? It's not worth $20 a month to me.
And you know what? I'm going to say this and make it very clear. If the Cubs made a legit offer to Juan Soto and he said, no, I'm staying in New York, okay. Okay.
Or he decided to go to the Dodgers, or, like, I get it. I get it. If you make
Like
a
like
legit,
Shohei Ohtani, he wanted
yeah,
to go to the Dodgers. Okay. It's that you don't even want to try. And what's disappointing is I really thought the Craig Counsell hire was kind of them saying, you know what, we're fully open for business here. Because that is the one coaching move in this city over the past 5 some years where you're like, wow, that is an alpha move. But
yeah.
eh,
But I want to finish with the Bears. I want to talk about Caleb Williams.
sure.
He's a dude. We've got a legitimate quarterback.
Today, on a number of occasions, it made me feel things.
Is he flawless? No. We saw that uh, when he took that bad sack.
Yeah.
Didn't throw the ball away.
Yeah.
That's He's been bad. Deep balls, he's been pretty bad on deep balls, but is he makes incredible throws. Look at the couple of throws that he made on the roll where you thought he was like, I think everybody thought he was throwing the ball away. And he had that, what, like 50-yard pass that set him up for a touchdown.
You're talking about the one to DeAndre Swift.
Was that the one that was like the lob?
Yeah, because he was
Yeah.
rolling, he was
Yeah.
rolling to his right, and then he was basically going out of bounds, and he just flinged it down the sideline to
Yeah.
DeAndre Swift.
That was incredible.
That was incredible.
That is a Patrick Mahomes move.
Yes.
And you can't teach that. That is just
Pure talent.
pure unadulterated talent. And he's a dude. And you build around that guy, and he's going to lead you to do good things. And you see that with a flawed system, with a bad offensive line, him doing these things, the way he scrambles, and it's not just a scramble, it's a smart scramble.
Yes.
He just is smart. He knows where the sticks are. He knows what he's doing. And even though he's being aggressive on some of these throws, this is against the best defense in all of football, the number one ranked defense.
And the number one blitzing defense.
Is he made some incredible throws. And that dude, do you know when the last time he threw an interception was?
Oh, it was weeks ago. Wasn't it in London?
London. Do you know when the last time before that he threw an interception was?
It was against the Colts.
Yes. In September.
Mm-hmm.
He's not turning the ball over. And sure, there's a couple that like maybe possibly could have been intercepted if they made a great play. But
so does every quarterback.
Every quarterback does. And I thought he was being too safe with the ball, but he's starting to fling it now. And if he can get, and the problem is some of these deep ones, like there's no timing there with these guys. And the offense has not practiced scramble drills. So he's not getting this opportunity. Like when he should be hitting these ones is when the play breaks down, he's scrambling. You can clearly tell that they have not worked on the scramble drill. Is you should have some guys coming back to get the ball and some guys just going deep. And somewhere along the way, coverage is going to break down and you're going to be able to hit a 50-yard pass with a wide open guy. So even if you underthrow it, overthrow it, the guy's going to get it because there's nobody around him to play defense. But is he's starting to be more aggressive and protecting the ball. It's incredible. That's rookies don't do that. Jordan Love doesn't do that. Jordan Love throws picks left and right.
Yeah, I mean, the last few weeks have been very, very encouraging on that front.
Yeah, and now that he's getting rid of the ball, I can't imagine what having somebody like Ben Johnson there, where it's just really innovative and really aggressive, and you're constantly putting pressure on that defense. They're doing that with some boring ass shit like Thomas Brown. I'm not anointing him as a savior. He is just being an adult in the room. And like you had a drug addict babysitter before, and now you've got an adult that he didn't know what he's doing, I don't think totally, but he's competent.
And the players seem to like him.
But he's making some way too many those wide receiver screens, and they're not being telegraphed like they were under Waldron, but like the one today with the misdirection was a nice one.
Yes.
But there's too many of those. Not enough run pass balance. Like, you look today and they didn't run enough times. They lost in overtime by 3 points on a field goal. And you know how many times the Bears rushed not with their quarterback? With a running back, they ran 15 times.
Yeah. You know what I do wish we would see a bit more? I really wish on some of more of those third and short, like those 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4s, we try doing Roschon Johnson a bit more, because DeAndre Swift is that home run hitting type guy. He hits a hole, he accelerates, and I think he does really, really well with that. He's had a good year, but I want to see them try to use kind of the gash in between the tackles with Roshan Johnson on some of those runs because we've seen it sometimes they try to go to the outside with Swift and you lose yards when he's not able to hit that home run hole.
Uh, I wish they would put a balance in there more. Is Roshan Johnson should be getting more carries. They should be carrying the running backs should just be getting more carries, period. It's good for your young quarterback to have an established run. Um, like let's see. Did the Chargers didn't play yet. Let me look at the
Isn't the
Chargers.
Harbaugh Bowl tomorrow?
Yeah. I'm looking um last week against the Bengals. The uh when it was a shootout, you had more runs than that and more yards than that. Is you got to run the ball, and I think you need to vary it up. Like you said, I want to is it shouldn't be all DeAndre Swift except at the goal line. So the two carries Roshan Johnson had today were where they were close to the goal line and they got that first down at like the 2 yard line, and then when he ran it in.
Yeah.
So like those are the two carries he had. Everything else was DeAndre Swift, and there weren't very many of them. You need to run the ball more, and you need to vary that up and bring guys in, or bring Roshan Johnson and bring DeAndre Swift in, and get those defenders off balance because it's a different tackling. Is tackling a guy that's quick versus a guy that's more powerful.
Yep.
Um,
Because DeAndre Swift, he's not going to get very far between the tackles if there isn't the hole to get through. He's not a power back. He's, the shifty finesse type guy.
and I still will die on this hill. The Bears should have brought in Derrick Henry.
Oh, could you imagine?
That dude's a beast.
He
He's
is a
still a
beast.
beast. He's
Yeah,
still
he
a
is.
beast. But I, you know, but I mean, Caleb Williams is gonna be really good, and I'm frustrated that Ryan Poles wasted a year of Caleb Williams by keeping Matt Eberflus. He wasted a year, and I was honestly worried that Matt Eberflus was going to wreck Caleb Williams, and it's looking like he's not. We still got some games left, but it's looking like Caleb's going to overcome Matt Eberflus. But the fact that it's malpractice that you got to bring in this generational type young quarterback with the number one pick, and you're like, we are going to make the softest landing possible, and you kept Matt Eberflus.
You kept Matt Eberflus, who brought in Shane Waldron, and you didn't build up the trenches to protect him.
It's so mind-numbingly dumb.
It really is. And you know what? Shout out to Caleb Williams. He now holds the Bears rookie record for passing yards in a season.
I
Not a
mean,
high bar, but
no, it's not a high bar at all. And you look at just Bears overall, their uh, all-time passing numbers. And so, do you know where Caleb Williams is on the all-time Bears passing yards list?
oh, do I want to know?
Uh, he's 33rd all-time career passing numbers of the Chicago Bears, and it's not like, oh, he's got a long way to go to get to 32. How close is
What
he?
does he need? 5 more yards?
7.
Oh, you weren't kidding.
On his next pass, he will pass Brian Greasy.
Oh, he's about to pass Brian Greasy. All right.
He's like 50 some yards behind Chris Chandler for 31. He is 62 from number 30, Steve Walsh. He is 86 away from Nick Foles at 29. Like, if Caleb Williams throws for 200 yards in his next game, let's say he throws for 230 yards his next game, he will be 28th on the all-time Bears passing yards leader. 28th. This is This is a founding organization.
An organization that's been around for over 100 years.
How many games do the Bears have left? What, 6?
Yeah.
6 games. All right, let's hypothetically say what's a fair number of average yards per game? How many in 6 games? How many yards do you think Caleb can throw for being conservative?
Can I give you a yard total on the season by that end?
Then I can't match. I just from the
Okay.
next
Oh,
6 games, yeah. Is 1,200 fair? 200 yards a game?
sure.
Okay. So then that would put him at 3,260. That would put him at 25th.
Hey.
And then after next season, that would put him at possibly top 10.
Wow.
If he throws for 4,000 yards next year, he could be top 10 all time after 2 seasons.
That's epic.
And he would not be that far behind Sid Luckman at number 2.
That great Sid Luckman.
Sid Luckman, all-time best Bears quarterback ever. How many yards did he throw for in his career? 14,000.
Good grief.
Oh my God. All time. The all-time passing leaders. It's Tom Brady is number 1 at 89,000 passing yards. Bears all-time number 1, 23,000.
Ugh. Not even half.
I mean, the Bears all-time best passer is like 10,000 yards behind Dan Fouts.
The disgust in your voice when you said his name.
Yep. Passing leaders that have more career passing yards than the Bears all-time leading passer. Joe Flacco, Drew Bledsoe, Vinny Testaverde. God.
Who thought we'd be bringing up Vinny Testaverde on this show?
God. Kirk Cousins, Kerry Collins, Derek Carr,
Derek Hart. Wow.
Andy Dalton, Dave Craig, Boomer Esiason, Matt Hasselbeck, Alex Smith, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Jim Hart, Steve DeBerg, some guy named John Hadel. I don't even know who he is. Y.A. Tittle, Jared Goff, Ken Anderson, Sonny Jurgensen, Mark Brunell, John Brody. I don't know who he is.
John Brody?
Dak Prescott, Norm Snead, Joe Ferguson, John Kitna, Roman Gay. I'm not even making these names up. These are real names.
No, I remember John Kitna.
Roman Gabriel, Jake Plummer, Brad Johnson, Rich Gannon, Len Dawson, Chris Chandler, Trent Green, Ron Jaworski, Craig Morton, Jeff George, Steve Grogan, Jim Harbaugh, Jeff Garcia, Matt Schaub,
Matt Schaub, the Texans legend.
Ken O'Brien, Bob Greasy, Tommy Kramer, Charlie Johnson, Dante Culpepper, Steve
Dante
Bartkow, Steve Bartkowski, Steve Berline.
Dante Culpepper had wow.
Those are the players that have more career passing yards than the Bears all-time passing leader.
Question.
Jay Cutler, if you add his Denver Bronco and his Dolphins, is higher, but it's
Yeah, but that doesn't.
the Bears all-time career passing leader is Jay Cutler at 23,443. I'm not even done listing players with that.
Let's hear some more, shall we?
Andrew Luck, Norm Van Brocklin, Otto Graham, Jameis Winston, Lynn Dickey,
Lynn Dickey,
Brian Sipe, Archie Manning, Steve Berline. God, some of these are just guys.
yeah.
Steve DeBerg. Why? We've been around for 100+ years. Why don't we have a guy? Why is our passing leader all time like Baker Mayfield is on the doorstep of, like, by the end of the year, Baker Mayfield will be higher. Baker Mayfield.
Oh.
Bernie Kosar is one one setup pass before a connected Hail Mary from being higher than the Jay Cutler Bears.
Wow. Boy, this list is wow.
But this team and stupid Matt Eberflus, everyone was like, well, you know what? He's been terrible, but the defense is playing well. The defense is playing like dog shit tacos. They can't tackle. They're undisciplined. They jump off sides when they're clearly it's a play that they're trying to get you to jump off sides on, and they still jump off sides. They don't have a run defense. Why on earth is any team passing the ball? Just run the ball.
Yeah, I know. I've said that the last few weeks. I'm like, whenever a team like passes the ball against the Bears and like it gets picked off, deflected, or even today when they had a 4th and 1, the Vikings did, and they passed and it was incomplete and they turned over on downs. I remember saying, like, why would you even pass the ball?
Yeah. Aaron Jones had averaged 4.8 yards a carry. Cam Akers averaged 6.3. Last week against the Packers is Josh Jacobs averaged 4.2 yards a carry. And the other guy averaged 8.5. Let's see. The week before the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson averaged 4. Gibson averaged 5.2. Like they're giving up plays on the ground. I would just run the ball all day long and then bleed that clock down and force them to be in a pass attack mode. Yeah, why on earth? Just run the damn ball.
Yeah, agreed.
Make this game. I would run the ball so much those games would be 2 hours and 10 minutes. Just run it. And the Vikings had the ball for like 9 minutes in the first half and were winning because they just like the big chunk plays. Like that's what the cover 2. The only thing it's supposed to do is take away those plays. And last week you got beat. Like you're like, you know what? We can't let the Packers march down the field. All right. What did they do the first play after you said we can't let them march down the field? What was it, a 70-yard pass? Like,
yep.
How on earth today you can't give up quick drive? Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. What do they do? What does the cover 2 defense do if it doesn't prevent the big plays? And I get your safety's been out, but you know what is you knew going in was one of the positions we said we were a little worried about the depth on, and that was safety. Bears didn't care. Didn't care. And you know what?
Yep.
The Bears have gotten bit pretty hard by the injury bug, but you know what? You've got to be prepared for that.
Yep.
And we've got the Lions coming into town, and they are going to kick the ever-loving shit out of us.
Well, we're going to Detroit.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. There, we're going to Detroit. This doesn't make it any better because we're worse on the road.
Yeah.
So they just they manhandled the Colts today.
Yep.
And Jahmyr Gibbs is going to rush for 140 yards. And David Montgomery is going to have a revenge game. And Keenan Allen still sucks. I know he had probably the best game of his Bears career, but I, he still sucks. How do you not get your feet in bounds on that play?
That was
Like
so close.
he dropped a couple passes, not as bad as the Cole Kmet drop.
Yeah, that was that was
That was
rough.
brutal. But at least Thomas Brown's getting Cole Kmet involved in things.
Yes, he is. And the
But
first play was the Cole Kmet of the game.
as it should be. Just get Caleb in a rhythm. But you know, this Keenan Allen experience is over, and the Bears next year are going to have some draft picks and they're going to have a bunch of money. But you know what? They need to figure out another wide receiver because their wide receivers next year will be Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, who are both very good, and then you have dog shit. Is Tyler Scott sucks.
I forget he's still even on the team.
And you got rid of Velus Jones. And your punt returner stinks. So I don't even know who's active on your team. You know, you have no wide receiver depth after that. So you're an injury away from being one dimensional. Like you need to draft some guys and develop them. Is you drafted Velus Jones, you drafted Byron Scott, and both of them have been bad. They got to be better.
Uh-huh.
You can't waste those draft picks like that.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
And I don't want to be that guy that fire everybody, but you don't have the right people in there and you just are wasting time. You should be in a win now window. You brought this quarterback in and you've got to be in a win now mode. And I think they could be competitive if they make some right moves.
I agree. Because you know what? I'll say as flawed as the Bears are, a better coach, they have a better record. Might not be amazing, but I think you'd have 2 or 3 more wins.
I think you can live with your tackles. Is you Ryan Bates, hopefully he's healthy next year. You got him under contract. And if you want to make him your center, fine. You upgrade 2 guards, go 1 free agency, 1 with a high draft pick, and you draft a high edge rusher. Then right off the bat, you're like, okay, that's a significant improvement. Significant improvement.
Yes. And then you need some help on the
Yeah, you bring in an edge rusher
defensive line as well.
Yeah, and you bring in a tackle somewhere. You've got 2 seconds. So right off the bat, you could go edge rusher, guard, defensive tackle in the first 2 rounds, and free agent guard, healthy Ryan Bates at center, and suddenly you've got a significant improvement, and you still have a bunch of draft picks and a bunch of money left to spend.
Yep.
Um, and so I'm looking. So the Bears they'll have after that, they would have a third round, a fifth round, uh, whatever pick they get for Justin Fields, either a fourth or a sixth, and then you have a sixth rounder from the Dolphins. So you'll probably end up getting a six from the Steelers unless Russell Wilson gets hurt. So how many more games does Fields need to play? 3?
Sounds about right. I don't know if he will though.
Yeah, but if unless
Wilson's gonna have to get hurt because he's playing pretty well.
yeah, he's playing pretty well. Um, so it's sounding like you'll have a first, 2 seconds, a third, a fifth, and 2 sixths. And that is in that you can get edge rusher, defensive tackle, guard, um, a wide receiver, probably a center, and a couple guards later on, guard and a tackle. You've got room there, and you've got free agent money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, over the cap. What are the Bears? Cap space. 2025. The Bears will have $82 million of cap space.
Quite a bit.
It's quite a bit of cap space. Um, so you've got room to move here and maneuver. And you could easily turn this around. If you bring in a winning GM, this should be a no-brainer how to work this.
We'll see. The only thing that gives me some hope is watching Caleb Williams today.
And I'm going through this list and guys that you can easily cut here. And you mm, 2025 calculator. 82 million. Let's see. DeMarcus Walker. Let's see. You can cut DeMarcus Walker. That gives you up to 87 million. Kevin Byard. You could cut him. That gets you up to $94 million in cap space. Gerald Everett. You cut him. That gets you up to $100 million in cap space. See how easy that was to do?
Easy
$100 million.
peasy.
$100 million. You can front load a few contracts. Just you could make this work easily. And you could be a Super Bowl contender next year if you do it right. And that's why it's so important that they can't screw this up.
No, they have no room to screw this up.
It is this is literally the decisions they make for their GM and their head coach is the difference between next year being a disappointment, a 500 or worse team, and being a legit team that you don't want to face in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be last year's Lions if they do this right.
Which is a big if.
Yeah, that's a big if. Big if. And I think Ryan Poles has to go, and Matt Eberflus needs to have been gone 10 months ago,
No, I agree with that. Yeah.
11
Set it
months.
all off season.
Yeah, now almost, yeah, like 11 months ago.
Hell,
Which
yeah.
was
I've been saying it since the blown game against the Broncos last year.
had you been smart and made a midseason firing then, you wouldn't have had to go through the offseason.
No, but they won a few games against an awful Commanders team, an awful Raiders team, and
Is when the Bears lose on Thanksgiving, that'll have been multiple 6-game losing streaks that Matt Eberflus has had.
Well, I
Mo-
tweeted out today the Bears have had 4 5-game plus losing streaks going back to 2020.
Yeah. So Matt Eberflus has had a 6-game losing streak, a 5-game losing streak, and a 4-game losing streak.
Yep. But plenty
So,
of moral victories.
yeah, moral victories.
It's what they love here. Nothing like a good moral victory.
Hate a moral victory.
It's all we know.
Ugh. Um, I want to talk a little Cubs here. Uh, is the Cubs made a trade? Um,
They made 2 trades, technically.
um, which other one did they? Oh,
They
is
got
the
the catcher from the Angels
catcher?
and they got
Yeah,
Eli Morgan from the Guardians.
wasn't the one for the catcher just for cash considerations?
Yeah, I mean it was adding depth at the catcher position for no real expense.
Yeah, but the Cubs acquired Eli Morgan, um, and they gave up a young prospect. And Gary texted me all up in arms that it was a dumb decision.
Why?
That's what I said. I was like, the kid was young, had a really high strikeout rate, and is blocked. Like I don't like what else are you gonna do? You bring in a reliever who is been more than serviceable and makes little money. Like
He's
I don't
under years of control. He's not going to be your back end guy. He's not going to blow guys away, but you need as much pen depth as possible.
yeah. So I don't see the harm. You had an abysmal bullpen last year. You bring in a guy who's a legitimate middle bullpen guy.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
I'm more than fine with it. I would
Yeah.
do that trade 10 times out of 10. I
You
would
need
not
to
put
have
out a
as
single.
much insurance for relievers as possible. And you got to get it in
Absolutely.
a number of different ways. So even if
Absolutely.
he's not good next year, I like that the fact that they're trying it.
It is. I think even if he's not good, he's not going to be bad. Like if he's mediocre, I'm fine with that. I just need guys that aren't going to be bad
Yeah,
in
that,
that road.
that would be ideal.
Yeah. But then there was a couple of corresponding moves, some surprising, some not surprising. Um, Adbert Alzolay was DFA'd.
Well,
Brennan Davis was DFA'd, and
well,
Patrick
Brand, yeah.
and Patrick Wisdom was DFA'd.
I mean, and none of those really surprised me. I mean, Patrick Wisdom, his time on the Cubs ran out. With Adbert Alzolay, he's going to be rehabbing most of the year, so you could re-sign him to a minor league deal. And with Brennan Davis, he was a top prospect for a while. The injuries just couldn't evade him. It's really sad, but I hope wherever he ends up, he finds his footing.
And Brennan Davis could come back to the Cubs. It's just they had to release him from the 40-man roster, right?
Right. I don't know. I think that that's truly moving on, but you never know.
Yeah. I mean, I really thought this year it was taking strides forward, but those injuries cost him at a really important time in his career.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just too bad.
Um, so I feel terrible about Brennan Davis. You know, and I hope he's able to figure it out and turn it around. Um,
Me too. Seems like a good guy, hard worker, just hasn't gotten the breaks.
right. Um, and uh, but this Cubs team, they're doing some things. It's just nothing important.
You non-tender Nick Madrigal, which eh,
Which makes that lose-lose trade complete.
yeah, oh yeah, that was just that was a
What a
nothing burger of a trade.
Oh my God, that trade was like at the time we're like, oh my God, this is gonna be a big trade. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, if Nick Madrigal is this on base machine contact guy, plays second base for the Cubs, like, all right, we got a MLB ready player, and just what a terrible trade for both
Yeah.
sides. It was just a dumb, bad trade. Nobody won.
And Kimbrel was terrible for the Sox. I really thought Cody Hoyer could have been something, but he suffered those massive injuries. It's
Mhm.
just too bad. But yeah, Nicky two strikes, no more. No more soft ground balls right to the shortstop and bad base running and yeah.
Yeah, so and and like you said, this team they're not going to go after Juan Soto, which is just really disappointing. Um, that I just I don't. The only difference with Cubs ownership and White Sox ownership is the Cubs ownership isn't holding a press conference to make a joke out of that. The fact they're not going after one of the best free
We're
agent is,
not going at this show, Otani.
but the Cubs are not that much different. Is go out there um and try to get these guys.
Yeah, well, I resigned to the fact that they're not.
Um, yeah, it's just frustrating, and God only knows what the White Sox are doing.
Austin Riley, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe, maybe. I mean, they hired a bench coach. Um, but they seem to have everybody on the trading block again.
Yeah, we'll see with Garrett Crochet. If you try to move Robert, his value's at an all-time low, so I don't know.
I mean, he is. They've said he is. Like everybody is on the block for the White Sox. Um, so I mean, this that team's going to get if it's possible, they're going to be worse next year. Maybe not record wise, but they might have uh uh they might have a worse record, or they might have a worse team, even if they don't have a worse record.
The only thing that I think that could save them from that is if they call up some prospects, because like if you have Colson Montgomery out there, I don't know what the timeline is for Noah Schultz, but I know you have some young arms in that system. So, but in terms of like veteran talent, like yeah, I mean,
Um, yeah, so I don't have high hopes of what either team is going to do in this off season, and that's just really frustrating. Um,
the one cool thing this offseason is Matt Shaw is killing it in that tournament.
yeah, I mean, so I'm assuming they're going to bring him up.
I don't know if he'll be for opening day, but we'll see. He'll be up at some point next year. I just wonder if they're going to play the whole, service time
I don't
thing.
know. I mean, are they going to try to trade Paredes?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's another factor too, is how they adjust the roster here,
I mean, they could try to trade Bellinger.
which it sounds like they might be doing that.
Um, I mean, I'm fine with that as long as it helps them win.
You
If
better
they're
have a good plan. That's all I'm going to say.
yeah, is that production better get replaced?
Yeah, I can't sit here and say they can't shake anything up, but you don't just trade him just to trade him, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing is this is kind of the golden rule in the NBA, but it applies to MLB too, is when you make a trade is you want to come out with the best player in the trade,
Right.
not the best accumulation. So like if you're going to trade Cody Bellinger, you better get somebody of better, equal or better value, or use the financial savings to bring in somebody that's going to replace that production. Like, just it has to. You have to, like, you didn't have enough production last year. You have to have at least have that same production this coming year.
Right. Right.
So if I'm okay shaking up rosters and doing these things, you can't just shake up the roster without a plan in place to make the roster better.
Right.
And,
Exactly.
and I have a feeling that they're going to pull that Red Sox move where they take a step back to take a step forward.
Yeah. Red Sox move. That's a good way to put it.
And I don't like it. And I know it's worked in the past for the Red Sox. I just don't like it.
Well, it's
That,
risky. It could pay off. It could not.
yeah, it's, um, I just, you're the Cubs. You should just be spending money and winning. The Dodgers have the highest payroll in baseball. And guess what? They're going after Juan Soto.
If they get him, I give up.
If they get there, what's the point? Like, you might as well just wait. You might as well just sell everything off and rebuild because you're not going to win.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous.
Like, if you have Otani and Soto in that lineup and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, like that might be better than the 27 Yankees.
I mean that's a creative team. That's something you make on MLB The Show.
Yeah, it's unreal. And then the Bulls.
Fun bad.
The Bulls, man. I Josh Giddey, I was like, when the first few games, I was like, man, this guy has been fun. He's been exciting. He's adding energy to the Bulls. He's making plays happen. I like this guy. I don't understand why the Thunder benched this guy. And then I found out, oh, he kind of sucks. Like, reality came in, and uh, I, um, I just don't know how to explain to that about what happened to that guy.
It's been kind of a weird start to his tenure here.
Yeah, I mean, Zach has been very good.
Up that
Vooch,
trade value. Up the trade value for both those guys.
I don't want to trade Zach though. I don't. I think if you're smart. I mean, if you're Jerry Reinsdorf, yeah, you're gonna up the trade value and trade him, blah blah blah. But if you're smart, you go out and you put another superstar next to him, and
They're not
maybe
going to.
they're not going to. And that's the shitty part is the Bulls just don't spend that money. Another team, when they were talking about Zach LaVine trading him, every team that was looking at him was like, "Oh yeah, let him. We're gonna make him our number 3 guy." Like, the Bulls are like, he's too expensive to be our guy, and other teams are like, he's gonna be our 3. He's gonna be our 3rd guy, and that's why the other teams are winning. It's just, you look at that actual payroll spend.
Yeah.
uh this team just doesn't do that. um like, all right, where are the Bulls? So the Bulls, do you know where the Bulls currently are in the NBA spend for salary?
No, where are they?
21st out of 30 teams.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
They are significantly closer to being 30th than they are to being first.
Yeah. Sounds right.
And that's why that's part of the reason that they're not winning is, yeah, they haven't drafted well, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, the NBA, it's just, you're throwing money at things. Is you need superstars, and the Bulls don't have superstars. Get superstars. How do you get superstars? You make big swing trades, or you spend in free agency and get guys to come here,
Or you win the lottery.
or you win the lottery. I mean, that Victor Wembanyama, he's real good.
Yeah, yes, he is.
I would have liked to have one of those, please.
Yeah,
Um,
hey, a lottery pick would be pretty good this year with that kid that's coming up.
yeah, but um,
They're not gonna win the lottery.
let's look at Tankathon. Um, I mean, we're the 76ers they're tanking. They're going for that.
Yeah,
The
that's brutal in more ways than one.
yeah, the Bulls the Bulls are currently um tied with Detroit for the eighth. But then what do they have? Then they're gonna probably lose that pick to San Antonio because it's only top 10 protected. Uh, they still have that Portland trade uh, where they're owed of Portland first round protected for picks 1 through 14 that has not been uh, they've not gotten yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's brutal. And that Cooper Flag, he looks real good.
Yes, he does.
Yes, he does. Um, so I think whoever wins that lottery is going to get a good one.
Yeah, I think so too. And I don't think it's gonna be the Bulls.
Ugh, ugh. And then where the Bears at here? Bears currently drafting 12th.
And the Blackhawks, look at their tankathon too.
Yep, they're number 2. It would be they had the odds for the number 2. San Jose, man, they kicked the shit out of the Blackhawks. They're a bad team.
Yeah, I know. I know. And the Ducks beat him at home the other night too. Though you beat the defending Stanley Cup champs. That's your one win in a while.
Like I I knew they weren't going to be good. I just assumed they would be better.
Yeah, well, at least a bit more functional, you know. I mean, it's just when you sit and you watch it, you just see the lack of chemistry, the mess, and Bedard looks so hesitant. Like it's almost like Caleb Williams under Shane Waldron. It's like being gun shy. I just want to see him be more aggressive, and I want to see him back on a line with Taylor Hall and Teuvo Teravainen.
Why is that so hard?
I don't know. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Ugh. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I've said my piece. Go Illini.
Yeah, at least one team.
Oh, and shout out to my high school. They're going to state.
Oh, good job. My high school
Yeah.
stinks. My high school stinks too. I've just I just have nothing but terribleness follow me around.
Yeah, my alma mater didn't have a great season in football. It's been a while since they've had a good season, but my college alma mater, I should say. But hey, good for York High School. They're heading to state. They're going to play Loyola Academy out in Normal this coming Saturday. So really exciting time. It's probably going to be on local television. I bet a lot of the local bars will have a lot of York fans watching that game. So,
My my college alma mater still undefeated. DePaul undefeated at football.
DePaul's back.
At football,
Oh,
undefeated. They're
okay.
undefeated at basketball too.
I was going
I
to say
think.
that
I
DePaul
think.
basketball is looking good again.
Yeah. God, if they are good this year, I I will be so excited. They have not been good for a long time.
DePaul needs to bring something to this city, man. And you know that those great DePaul teams all those years ago created that last generation of fans. So if they could kind of win some of those fans back.
Just imagine if DePaul could just recruit Chicago. How good they would be.
Yo, yeah, no kidding.
Like if you just got the best players out of Chicago, like you would be a top team. Like Chicago produces some great basketball players. Just win. You don't have to recruit out of state. Just win Chicago.
Well, yeah, and if you start winning games and you become a legitimate program again, you'll have a better chance of getting some of those kids.
Yeah. Ugh. All right. Well,
I
that's
hate
gonna
Chicago sports.
so frustrating. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. How we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter /X, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, bear down.
Win. What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win.
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7. The Bears.
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down